continue our Bible study with Matthew, and today we're going to be looking at chapter 13, verse 24. And this is the parable of the weeds and the wheat, which is 24 through 30. And over in 36 through 43, Jesus explains the parable. So we'll look at those two things today. The next time we're together, we'll look at the parable of the mustard seed and the use of the parable of the yeast. So here we go. Let us pray. Lord, help us to hear your word, what you intended when you spoke it, what you intend for us as we hear it. Help us, Lord, I pray. In Christ's name, amen. We're in the section on the parables, and it says very simply in Matthew 13:24, this. He put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field. But while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the slaves of the householder came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from? He answered, An enemy has done this. The slave said to him, Then do you want us to go and gather them? But he replied, No, for in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at harvest time I will tell the reapers, Collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn. This parable, in some ways, is pretty straightforward. The master goes and sows a field full of good seeds, and then the enemy comes and puts wheat in the way to harm the wheat. What's interesting is the servants want to be the ones who go out and do the separating. They want to tear up the weeds and let the wheat live. It's like, in other words, they want to be the ones who pass judgment. I remember as a kid how much I struggled when we were pulling weeds out of the flower beds around the house. I always struggled to know what was a weed and what was a flower my mom planted. And there were times when I'm sure I pulled up a flower or two and left some weeds. Now, I don't know if it's just one of those things you have to learn, the difference between what's a weed and what's a flower. And some flowers look like weeds, some weeds look like flowers. But it's a gift and it's a skill to be able to know the difference. And Jesus's thing here is he's saying look, don't be surprised when there's bad right alongside the good. Okay? Don't be shocked when bad things grow up alongside good things. When good people are right alongside bad people. But it's not your job to try to distinguish between the two. It's not your job to pass judgment. It's someone else's responsibility. Because he said, if you go out and pull out the weeds, you're going to ruin the wheat too. You're going to damage the kingdom if you do that. It's not your job to parse people out. It's not your role to put people into camp. It's not your job to say, hey, oh, look at you, go in that column. Oh, you are clearly in that column. I mean, how long have we done that in our churches? Someone shows up, they're wearing a coat and tie. It's like, oh, wow, welcome, we're glad you're here. Get treated like royalty. Someone else shows up and they're wearing ratty jeans and tattoos all over them. It's like, oh, well, you must be one of those people. And we have no idea what's in their hearts. The guy in the fancy suit could be a pedophile, right? Could be a reprehensible person. And I think about, the controversy around Jeffrey Epstein and some of the things that he reportedly did, right? And yet he's rich and powerful with rich and powerful friends and welcomed into every social circle. And yet other people who don't have the money or wealth are treated very differently. Well, they may be the best people on earth. So we have a real hard time telling the wheat from the weeds. We're just not good at it. And Jesus says we're not to worry about it. So we have to be very careful. This is a challenging parable because it challenges us to make sure that we don't pass judgment on people just by how they look, which we do a lot. Jesus has other criterias, and it has to do with the heart and the soul and the spirit. So I'm going to jump over now to Matthew 13, verse 36 and following, where Jesus explains the parable. No need for me to explain it if Jesus is going to explain it for us. So in, again, 13:36, it says, "Then he left the crowds and went into the house, and his disciples approached him, saying, 'Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field.' He answered, 'The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man.'" Right? That Jesus often referred to himself as the Son of Man. So Jesus. "The field is the world," right? So Jesus sows the good seed into the world. "And the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one. And the enemy has sowed them. Who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers. And they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where they will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." Wow, that's kind of that's pretty straight up, pretty much saying God decides. You know, the heavenly realm decides the good from the bad, not you. So not me, not you, not anyone else decides the fate of humanity. We may want to, but it's not our job. The kingdom will be preserved. That's something. While we can get caught up in looking at the judgment and the ordeal that faces those who fall away, or never come in the first place, one thing to focus on is what is preserved, and that is the kingdom. That is the goodness. That is the ones who get it. And this parsing out is, however it's done, whenever it's done, is completely up to God and up to the heavenly realms, not up to us. And we have to be aware of that and know that. And that should give us a sense of freedom, that we can live and know that God's going to take care of it. And yes, this means that God's going to right every wrong. And I mean, when you look and you think about just some of the things that are so wrong with creation, so many things that are so wrong with humanity. And it looks like people get away literally with murder at times. And, you know, people who scheme and steal and lie and cheat and I know a guy who cheated on his wife, ruined his marriage, barely a father to his son, right? And you wonder, and it just seems like everything just goes his way. And then, so there's frustration with that. But then I have to step back and go, it's not my job to pass judgment on him, even though I just kind of did it. I have to let God handle that. It's up to God to determine the outcome, and it's up to God to be the one who decides who's in and who's out. And it also reminds me, we will get to the story of the prodigal son. How gracious God is in that story. And it makes the older brother mad because he wants judgment to be passed on the younger son. We also have to know God's a God of mercy and love. And again, it's up to God. We should never take joy or delight in someone being punished, yet we do. Just like in the story I had, it's frustrating at times, but yet God pushes us to be the kind of people who are shaped by His Word in such a way that we allow God to take care of those issues. It's enough for us and challenging enough for us to do the things we should do and let God take care of what only God can. But yet, what's interesting in this parable is the servants want to go out and do that, right? They want to go pass judgment. They want to be the ones in charge of deciding the good and the bad. And Jesus is like, no, that's not your job. It's well above your pay grade because you just ruin everything. And so our call is to be the people we can be, to bring forth goodness into this world. That's always what Christ is pointing us to do and challenging us to do. So I'm gonna stop right there. When we come back next week, we're going to come back with chapter 13, verse 31, and we'll talk about the parable of the mustard seed, the parable of the yeast, the use of the parables, and then we'll see where we go from there. So thank you again for being part of this. And don't forget, we have outdoor worship this Sunday at 9 a.m. We'll also be posting a pre-recorded service, and we will have live stream for you up and running by 9 a.m. When the service starts. So look forward to continuing this journey. Thank you for being a part of it. God bless. Have a great day.